It's all too normal to want to spend time alone. It might be tempting to escape away from it all given the enormous strains of daily living. For some people, even a week-long vacation is insufficient, but for others, even a month or a year won't do. It may take decades in certain situations. One man did not settle with a week's leave from work. He felt he wanted to escape society and its constraints. Rather, he lived in hiding for over 3 decades. Upon his eventual discovery, his account was not believed by anyone. Welcome to USA Stories channel. Do not forget to subscribe and activate the bell button to receive all new updates. Now let's go to the story. Most individuals find that a week-long vacation to a tropical location is plenty when they decide to take a break from the worries of everyday life. People just need a little period of time to recover before getting back to their regular lives. But that was far from sufficient for North Pond hermit Christopher Thomas Knight. Christopher was raised around 1965 in Albion, Maine, and had a very typical childhood. Generally speaking, Christopher has never been good at relating to others, not even his classmates. He was more comfortable spending time by himself than with other people. Though he probably kept to himself, he was intelligent, and it appeared that his future was bright. But in 1986, just as everything in his life seemed to be falling into place, Christopher fled everything. He didn't even inform his family or his job what he was doing since he was so desperate to be away from civilization. In fact, not even he knew where he was heading without a map or compass. Christopher drove aimlessly for a while before getting out of his green Subaru and left the keys in the ignition. Equipped with a sleeping bag and a tent, he set off on his journey into the unknown. The only issue was that he had no prior experience camping or living in the woods. For his first 2 weeks, all he did was walk through the woodlands of Maine, but he soon learned how unprepared he'd been, particularly with regard to obtaining food. Berries were tougher to obtain than imagined, so he was compelled to consume them because he had no hunting weapons. Eventually, Christopher recognized that in order to get food when the occupants were away, he would have to break into surrounding cottages. He first largely stole from their gardens in the hopes that they would mistakenly believe that a wild animal had taken their produce. Christopher quickly had to contend with the challenging conditions of the Maine woods at the same time. He made the decision to spend the night in an empty cottage because his tent could no longer hold him. He made the decision to sleep outside from that point on, regardless of the weather, since he was too scared the owners would come back to discover him. Eventually, Christopher was able to locate a place to stay. He knew no one would ever just happen to stumble upon it because he was so far from the usual route. He soon started to completely accept the solitary life he had chosen for himself. He tried his best to be silent at all times after building a home out of concern that someone might possibly hear him. Christopher would frequently break into nearby cabins to take whatever food and beverages he could. He become a proficient and cunning thief over time. The man who used to install alarm systems for a living was unmatched by even the most sophisticated residences. He would sometimes steal extra keys so he could enter their house more easily the following time, but he would only dare to enter when he was positive that no one was there. Christopher always made careful to take only what he needed. Any overt movements would undoubtedly reveal him. He primarily drank Mountain Dew drink, chocolate bars, and snack cakes. In this manner, he could prevent himself from becoming too thin and giving in to the weather. But he had to keep his shelter intact, so he stole jackets, tarps, and blankets whenever he could. Eating wasn't his only worry. In addition to reading, he also stole magazines so he could tear out the pages, place them on the ground, and absorb any moisture. Christopher was sure to remove any signs that someone had broken into a house. He didn't smash windows, but he did take doors off and then put them back in place and fix them when he got all the materials he needed. This was the way of life for over 30 years. But eventually, despite Christopher's best efforts to be exact, the residents of the residences started to discover several damages to their properties in addition to missing items. Christopher quickly started breaking into houses after dark. Despite hearing odd noises surrounding their homes in the evenings, the residents of North Pond, Maine, were never able to identify a real invader. Even if they would simply go back to sleep, they would discover haphazard items missing from their houses. The majority of individuals called the police to report missing different products, such as junk food, books, magazines, jeans, boots, radios, and batteries. At that point, the police concentrated all of their efforts on identifying the intruder. Before long, he was being called by a variety of names. These included the stealthy Yeti, the Loch Ness Monster of Maine, and the North Pond Hermit. Everyone in North Pond soon had security cameras installed in their houses, but it seemed like he could always get in and get away with it. Then, at last, the police made their big break when Christopher made the decision to break into a country summer camp. It was an obvious choice because the camp was stocked with all the food and tools one would need to survive in the wilderness, and there was little chance that anyone would notice anything missing. However, Christopher was unaware that he was being pursued by the police. Sergeant Terry Hughes oversaw the facility and had a strategy in place to apprehend the North Pond Hermit. He put in secret food lines, military-grade motion sensors in the kitchen, and industrial-grade floodlights. Sergeant Hughes acted quickly on April 4, 2013, when the alarm began to sound. He entered the kitchen expecting to see a masked intruder, but instead he saw a middle-aged man who appeared normal. Christopher dropped to his knees and refused to answer any questions when Sergeant Hughes asked for the criminal's name. As the detectives were taken aback by his account, Christopher started to talk. Christopher said that he had only spoken to 2 hikers who had been lost in the Maine woods for the previous 27 years. What was it, he said? Just say hello. Christopher entered a guilty plea to 13 counts of theft and break-in at Kennebec County Superior Court on October 28, 2013. What really surprised many, though, was that he was only sentenced to 7 months in prison for his crimes, which included an estimated 1,000 break-ins. He was also sentenced to 3 years of probation, weekly court appearances, and $1,500 in reparations for each of his victims. In addition, the judge mandated that throughout his jail term, he participate in a program for those with mental health disorders. In addition, Christopher tried to get in touch with his family, whom he had left behind years ago without even saying goodbye. His brother extended an employment opportunity to him upon his eventual release. Given his extraordinary tale, it was just a question of time until a book was written about him. American writer Michael Finkel, who interviewed Christopher while he was still jailed, recently authored the book The Stranger in the Woods. At the conclusion of his voyage, Christopher had virtually lost his identity. "I became more perceptive when I was alone," he said. "The tough part is that I lost my identity when I applied my expanded perspectives to myself. There was no one to perform for, no audience, and no need to define who I was. I lost my relevance." Although Christopher's motivation for seeking such intense seclusion may never be known, his tale is intriguing. Fortunately, he will repay everyone whose homes he broke into throughout the years. Talk about this amazing tale with your friends. 26 widespread survival misconceptions that pose much more risks than they do benefits. It's nothing short of a horror to be abandoned in the middle of nowhere by an unknown individual. While many individuals are enthusiastic about the survival skills they have learned from watching TV shows or from personal experience, the reality is that Mother Nature isn't always kind. Most advice that individuals receive is typically based on survival myths. You are going to have an exciting journey when I give you these 26 survival techniques. You may even get murdered or submerged in boiling water. You may be Bear Grylls, but either way, you're in for a thrilling ride. It can be difficult to survive in the snow, especially if you run out of water to drink. You could be thinking of consuming snow instead of reindeer blood or even your own urine, but those are not the best choices. However, consuming snow presents a dilemma due to its extreme cold. Consuming an excessive amount of it to relieve your thirst may lead to issues. It's possible for your body temperature to drop dangerously low. The ice should be boiled and used for drinking instead. We're not done yet, since there are other survival myths you should dispel as well. Surely you are familiar with the tale of Friends and the Bear. Consider that only a tale. Just go rescue your life when you are face to face. Avoid engaging in laying dead games with bears, particularly brown or grizzly ones, as this increases the likelihood that they may kill you for being a threat to their young. You will have to fight for your life if we discuss a large black bear build a shelter. by resting its side on a branch that resembles a beam for support. They are simple to construct. All you need are a few branches to create a wonderful shelter. The likelihood is, though, that they won't protect you from exceptionally cold or hot weather, or even from predators that might quickly destroy it. Larger is not necessarily better, particularly in terms of surviving. Avoid burning your branches to increase the size of your fire and weaken your shelter. Even with all your effort, a strong wind or precipitation might put out a fire in a matter of seconds. Thus, give your shelter priority. Cave fires appear romantic, but only in the best of movies. That is correct, really. It is not a good idea to keep a fire going inside a cave for your own comfort, since the heat expands the rocks, which can lead to their breaking. You will be screaming for assistance in a trapped cave as the rocks shatter and either murder the people within or act as a barricade. Better leave the fire outdoors then, since wet matches don't light until they're dry. They might be very frustrating. It is imperative for adventurers who have had to walk across shallow rivers or travel in the rain to avoid carrying matches in their pockets, as the moisture in the match heads will make it difficult to light them. If you want to travel somewhere damp, it might be a good idea to pack a waterproof container to keep your belongings dry. Alternatively, it might be useful to have waterproof matches with you. Eating in a jungle is a serious problem, particularly if you run out of food. Eat whatever animals eat. Indeed, you may believe that when out foraging, what is beneficial for the squirrels and birds is also probably beneficial for humans. However, this isn't always the case, as animals can consume poisonous foods like mushrooms that could be harmful to humans. Avoid being inebriated by avoiding eating the same foods as animals. It is said to be safe to consume raw meat and seafood when traveling. It's not, in fact, a good idea. Are you curious as to why? Enjoy all the bugs and diseases that accompany eating raw fish yourself. Well, not really. Everybody has seen the survival program when the charming presenter devours a helpless live animal. While this could be secure occasionally, it's definitely not a tactic to imitate. Raw animal meat may have germs that can infect humans and cause a long-lasting, hard-to-diagnose illness. You say, what about sushi? There are many of folks who like eating raw fish without getting sick from it, although some raw seafood from seawater is safe to eat. This is primarily because the viruses in it don't work well with human anatomy. Most of the time, neither the bacteria in oysters nor the worms in sushi are the correct kind to live in humans. To be safe, slaughter and cook the animal before consuming it. It may seem like a treasure to come upon a dead animal while traveling, particularly if you haven't eaten in a while. Still, give it up and move forward. You can go for 6 weeks without eating. Even though it would be unbearable, acquiring safe food, erecting a shelter, and drinking water are preferable to dying oneself out of despair. Usually, you can locate water by following a flock of flying birds. But since people can't read the minds of birds, you can wind up in an open field or with a group of amiable monkeys. Try this only if you have a good sense of what the birds are thinking. Yes, cactus juice has a lot of advantages, but just one kind of cactus is helpful for keeping you hydrated out of all the others. Survivors must carefully remove and drink from cacti, or else they may become sick and require medical assistance. Don't attempt to identify every cactus you come across if you are not skilled at doing so. Look for another method to quench your hunger. Do you want to remain hydrated by drinking urine? I wouldn't, but as the legendary pee-drinking Bear Grylls advises, go ahead and do it if it sounds good to your palate. Urine has little benefit for rehydration since it is a bodily waste and not recycled water. It does, however, satisfy your thirst because it is a liquid. You could think it makes sense to drink raw blood in order to live. Not really, though. Consuming animal blood may expose you to contagious illnesses, as you never know what illnesses the animals may be carrying. Being stranded in the woods and having to cope with health problems won't prepare you. The bizarre idea that you may stay hydrated by sucking on a stone is also untrue. Sucking on a stone causes your body to absorb moisture from other areas, increasing your thirst. In a desert, would you do that? It's possible that you've noticed moss growing on trees' north faces. Because it receives less sunshine, the north side has a higher concentration of moisture, which inhibits development. The growth of moss on trees can be influenced by the sun's angle at your location, the climate, and the shadow produced by surrounding environmental elements. Though that's all drama, you may have seen a lot of movie sequences where someone draws blood from a snakebite wound in order to save another person's life. In actuality, putting your lips near the wound contaminates your mouth with poison and adds additional spit to the wound. The best course of action is to get medical attention as soon as possible and to hold the area tightly to prevent the poison from spreading. It's true that drinking alcohol makes you feel warmer, and nothing beats a shot in the winter. However, alcohol causes the blood vessel surface to widen, which increases your susceptibility to the cold and interferes with the normal operation of all bodily organs. Coffee is the finest thing to remain warm. Frostbites can cause disability and annoyance. Although you want to get rid of them as quickly as possible, you shouldn't massage your frosted skin, since doing so is similar to rubbing sharp icicles into delicate tissues. Frostbites are caused by sharp ice crystals penetrating your skin and tissue. Instead, apply some heat to the damaged area and watch for it to normalize. It is completely false to say that hot tubs relieve hypothermia, as touching your frostbite won't make it go away. In a similar vein, using a hot tub just increases body temperature and increases the risk of heart attacks. Warm towels or bottles can be used to massage the patient as a kind of treatment. Are space blankets useless? Though they are important because they reflect infrared light and help preserve heat, you may have seen emergency blankets wrapped with mylar in science fiction films. If you cover yourself with one of them, you can stay secure. A shark that is attacking would not be a good idea to punch. Furthermore, not everyone possesses the knowledge and skill to hit it squarely and precisely. The best course of action would be to strike the shark's eyes and gills, or put something as solid as stone between you and the shark. To avoid becoming entangled in a rip current, swim in a parallel fashion to the coast. Since rip currents often operate at an angle, you can be swimming parallel to the current and yet get pushed out. Swimming both toward and along the beach is preferable. Since it might result in hypothermia, the concept of dressing primarily in cotton clothing throughout the winter may not be cool enough. The cotton absorbs perspiration, which is why your body gets chilly instead of keeping warm as you perspire. Hypothermia might arise from this cold. GPS is the travel companion you can't go without. It's an excellent navigational aid that provides you with guidance whenever and wherever you need it. It provides your location as well. GPS is helpful since navigating involves knowing not just where you are, but also where you want to go. Would thumbnails suffice to evaluate wood? You may have heard that wood may be used to start a friction fire if it can be dented with your fingernail. This myth just will not go away, even if it is untrue. Certain wood types, some softer, some dense, work well in friction fires, while others don't fare well at all. When the thumbnail test is successful, it is a coincidence rather than confirmation. Following a patient's numerous symptoms of hypothermia, including shaking, panic episodes, stammering, and unnatural movements, the patient also begins to feel sleepy. Most of the time, people let these people sleep, but that shouldn't happen since sleep in this circumstances might be fatal. Until you get them heated, try to keep them alert. Having stated that, we may draw the conclusion that everyone may find it challenging to survive under such situations. But the fittest are not the only ones who survive. Don't believe these survival myths. With the right steps, you can rescue the day on your own. Which of these caught your attention? Have you ever encountered a circumstance where you had to demonstrate your survival skills? Tell us in the space provided for comments below. I'm grateful. Being able to record an event while on the go is one benefit of owning a camera phone. John Harris, a resident of California, can definitely connect to that. In June 2018, he captured on camera a jogger searching through a homeless man's tent and discarding his possessions into a nearby lake. But once the video went viral, the neighborhood chose to act Harris, a resident of Oakland, California, frequently strolls by the lovely Lake Merritt. That's why he knows the homeless man who established a campsite there rather well. In the community, he goes by Drew, but his real name is Greg Markson. Drew's tent was set back against a pair of stone pillars at the side of a footpath close to the lake. But on the evening of June 8, 2018, a passing runner who seemed to object to the camp flipped his life upside down. But Harris was there to record the scene with his camera phone as things got out of hand. Harris starts the film by making his way along the trail in the direction of Drew's camp, where he finds the jogger going through his stuff. It's repulsive. It has an odor of feces. A female bystander asks the seemingly agitated runner, "It's nasty." He then says, "I'm not taking any of it." In response to the Oakland resident pressing him more, he is able to grasp it. When the woman claims that the jogger dropped some of Drew's belongings into the lake, he responds, "No, that was an accident." The runner then replies, "I'm picking up the trash, throwing it in the trash," as he gathers a few things and leaves, sensing that tension is building between the two. Harris verifies the woman's assertions by swiping over to the lake. According to Harris, he's taking stuff from a homeless man and throwing it in the lake. That's our beautiful lake with his stuff in it now. The resident of Oakland then returns his focus to the jogger, who it seemed had thrown the earlier bundle of goods into a garbage can. The self-described garbage guy turns around when the camera is focused on him and tries to defend his behavior once more. "I'm cleaning up rubbish, jogging along. What do you want me to do?" asks Harris. "Take a look at this. It was spreading widely. Here, it's already rather late. Help if you feel like it." Then, in spite of the increasing number of witnesses' cries, the runner gathers up another armful of goods and leaves, saying, "I don't know this guy." As the spectators' ire mounts, Harris raises his voice as the jogger returns from the garbage can. "What you're doing right now doesn't make sense, man," he responds. "That's not logical. You're dispersing it all over now. How are you spending your time?" The shirtless runner ignores him and then takes more of Drew's belongings, inciting an angry reaction. "Dude, stop doing that. Simply quit." As the jogger heads back to the garbage bin, Harris yells at him, "Stop taking his stuff." With the camera still pointed at him, the video ends with a shot of the man throwing more of Drew's things away. Following that incident, the impromptu cameraman then uploaded the clip to his Facebook page. Unsurprisingly, the video provoked a very angry reaction from online users, earning over 320,000 views since being posted on June 9, 2018. "I'm still stunned that yesterday I captured this video of some guy throwing a homeless man's belongings into Lake Merritt and around the area," Harris posted to Facebook. The man fled to resume his workout just as the cops arrived. The homeless man's belongings are deemed rubbish, therefore they declared they were unable to take any action, Harris went on. "The only possible outcome for his littering is a fine. The fact that these individuals are now residing in Oakland is absurd. This dude has to go down, so please share." The individual in question was given the handle hash #JoggerJoe when the video quickly went viral. Regarding Drew, his neighborhood soon came together in support of him, with Harris and another local man creating a GoFundMe campaign to help him out. But there was a fascinating turn of events. Kenzie Smith was the name of the local guy. A few weeks prior, he was included in a widely shared video that was shot near Lake Merritt when a woman reported him and his pals to the police for throwing a BBQ. Like #JoggerJoe, she quickly gained notoriety as #BBQBecky as internet people everywhere denounced her behavior, which seemed to be driven by Ray Smith talked about the encounter on the GoFundMe page and then talked about what he thought occurred to Drew. "Like the thousands of other people in the Bay Area without homes, Drew is one of our neighbors," wrote the man. "We want to demonstrate to Drew, via our care, that what happened to him is wrong. We're appalled that someone felt that treating him in this manner was appropriate." Smith went on, "It's unacceptable to damage someone's belongings just because they're homeless. Help us show Drew that this community is here for him and that we care." In light of this, the page has received over $14,000 in donations from Bay Area citizens, hoping to replace everything that Drew misplaced that day. But then this narrative took an odd turn. Jogger Joe went back to the lake a day after the event and tried to retrieve some of Drew's belongings. The now famous runner allegedly attacked them and took their phone when he saw what they were doing, according to the witness who was filming him on their phone. Following that, Jogger Joe was detained in the Santa Rita jail, approximately an hour's drive from Oakland, on June 11, 2018, on suspicion of first-degree robbery. Henry William Cent was confirmed to be his true identity. Jail records show that an eye-watering $100,000 was set as bail. On June 26, 2018, Smith provided an update on Drew's circumstances and hinted at some positive news. He said on the GoFundMe page, "We've been looking for an apartment for Drew and dealing with housing issues. We anticipate that he will have one this week. To find out when Drew will move in or if he will be placed on the waiting list, we'll be meeting with a landlord this week," Smith continued. Regarding Harris, he commended Oakland residents for their handling of Drew in the immediate wake of the occurrence and their reaction to it. "It's been phenomenal to see the community step up and really being vocal and saying that this kind of treatment of people will not be tolerated here," Harris stated to CNN in June 2018. Still, his contribution cannot be overlooked. Without his camera phone and fast thinking, the ensuing campaign to assist Drew would have taken a very different turn. As far as we can tell, the average Roman lived between 20 and 30 years. Therefore, the 1900 mortality rate of 31 years was not all that different from that period. But in the 20th century, things began to shift. The average life expectancy rose to 48 years by 1950, and then to 71.5 years by 2014. Furthermore, an increasing number of us will live to be 100 years old. At 122 years and 164 days old when she passed away in 1997, Frenchwoman Jeanne Calment holds the record for the oldest securely reported age. Madame Calment said that she had memories of Vincent van Gogh stopping by her father's business. Her age will probably continue to be a remarkable occurrence for years to come, although there are definitely becoming more and more centenarians. In recent years, the number of centenarians has increased annually by about 5.5% in the developing world. Compute the numbers. Every 13 years, the number of people who reach 100 doubles. By 2050, there will be 4.1 million centenarians worldwide if the current trend holds true and no asteroid hits Earth before then. In 1980, 32,194 persons in the United States were 100 years of age or older. The figure more than quadrupled to 72,197 by 2014. Professor Fanny Jensen of the University of Groningen explained this astounding rise to the Daily Mail by stating that people are living longer than ever before and will continue to do so due to advancements in medical care, including statins and antibiotics, as well as improvements in socioeconomic conditions, living standards, and housing. Jan Langer, a photographer, is one individual who has been particularly intrigued by this rise in lifespan. Given that he was born in 1978, it will take him quite some time to reach his 100th birthday. The Czech Republic's Opava, a historic city that has been there since at least 1195, is where Langer was born. After completing studies in anthropology, international relations, and Spanish at university, he currently works as a professional photographer specializing in portrait and documentary photography out of Prague, the capital of the Czech Republic. In addition, Langer works on special projects. The one we're examining now is called Faces of Century. The basic idea behind Langer's fascinating effort is to combine an image of a person as they were when he first met them with an old photo of them when they were younger. Every one of his subjects had reached the significant age of 100. On his website, Langer notes that there are already around 1,200 centenarians in the Czech Republic. In 50 years, that figure will rise to 14,000 people. Langer conjectures about the psychological effects of time and how they are manifested in the faces of the people he takes pictures of. As he states, it appears as though individual nature stays anchored in the abyss of time, even though personality traits change throughout life. Now let's look at these striking pairings of portraits. Ludvík Čihák. When Langer met Ludvík Čihák, he was living in a retirement community in Zlín, Czech Republic, where he was born in 1908. He is 102 in the portrait on the right. In this ancient photo, he is 20 years old. He was a competent confectioner when it was taken. He subsequently became a postman, but his daily circuit was ingrained in his memory. He mentioned that he didn't visit his family very much and that his connection with them was poor. In her left-hand portrait, Bedřiška Kolarova seems to be 26 years old, whereas in her right-hand portrait, she is 103 years old. Her early portrait was shot at her wedding. She was born in Marino in northern Italy. She was an accountant by trade, and at the time of Langer's photograph, she was residing in a retirement community in Brno, the second largest city in the Czech Republic. Kolarova never had children, and her only goal was to make one final trip to her home country of Italy. Vincenz Chetelina is 30 years old in this older shot, and it appears that he has finished building his home. It should come as no surprise that he worked in construction. He is 105 years old and was born in the Czech town of Lovosice nad Chidlinou in 1906. He was still living in his own house despite his advanced age. His hobbies are described by Chetelina as calm and peace. The 8 years he spent in prison for his role as a district commissioner during World War II were his most vivid recollection. This suggests that he was likely considered to have collaborated with the Nazis throughout the war. Antonin Kovar, born in 1906 in the northern part of the Czech Republic, Antonin Kovar was 102 years old when Langer photographed his portrait. He is 25 years old in the older photo, which was shot while he was a bandmaster in charge of his own group. In addition to being a musician, Kovar worked as a driver and a movie projector during his career. At the Czech city of Hustopecha, he resided at an elderly person's home at the time Langer took his picture. Kovar's daily activities included reading papers and enjoying music, and he had daily visits from his daughter. His fondest recollections were of his musical career and his happy marriage. All he wanted was to be able to play the clarinet again. Anna Vasova, residing in a retirement community in Sloop Nice, Czech Republic. At the age of 102, Anna Vasova was shown in the photo on the right. She was born in Zidorek nad Dubravu, a town in Czechoslovakia, in 1909. Vasova, who is 22 years old in the picture on the left, just got married. She worked as an agricultural laborer on the 1948 communist collectivized farms. She read romance novels all day long when Langer took her picture. She had pleasant memories of performing Russian music. The recollection of her spouse being taken hostage by the Nazis was not one of happiness. After she died, she wanted to see him again, Stanislav Spasil. At the time of the left-hand photo, Stanislav Spasil was a talented electrical engineer and an attractive young man of 17 years old. In 1908, he was born in the Czech Republic's South Moravian region in the town of Polica. Spasil, seen on the right, is 102 years old and still resides in his own house in a South Moravian hamlet with his daughter. His only desire was that he and his daughter would both be in excellent health. Anna Pospisilova, shown on the right, at exactly 100 years old, Anna Pospisilova was born in the Czech hamlet of Varbite in 1910. She was another of Langer's subjects who worked as a farmhand in Czechoslovakia's collectivized farms, before to the country's breakup from Slovakia following the collapse of communism. In the left-hand photograph, she looked 30 years old. Her brief response to Langer's query about her wish was to die, which left a lasting impression. She did, however, have a daughter who paid her daily visits. Anastas Baldrian was 17 years old when the photo on the left was shot. He was born in the Czech village of Adamov in 1910. He had jobs as a clerk and a locksmith. When Langer took his picture, he was residing in a retirement community and was 101 years old. He had a daughter who came to see him twice a week, and he spent his days in Glasgow reading the news. His only hope was for serenity as he thought fondly of his former co-workers. Marie Borisova. Born in 1910, the woman on the left is seen when she was 23 years old and married. She was a butcher by trade. When Borisova was 101 years old, she was still residing in her own apartment in Zlín, Czech Republic, when Langer took her photo. Spending time with her family was her favorite thing to do after she retired. The moment the communists took over the company she owned was her most memorable experience. Vlasta Siskova. Vlasta Siskova was still living in her own house at the age of 101 when Langer snapped her picture. Siskova is 23 years old in this early shot. In the Votis settlement, she was employed as a cook in the dining room of a tiny airfield. She can still clearly recall being in the vehicle in 1943 when it unintentionally ran over Klaus Heydrich, who was 7 years old. His father was the despised Nazi German Reinhard Heydrich, who governed the Czechs until his murder in Prague in 1942. She also remembered her brother being taken into custody by the communists in 1948, and Russian soldiers visiting her house following the fall of the Nazis. Ludmila Visnarova. her fiancé received a present from her when she was 23 years old, a left-hand picture. She lived in her own house, characterized her interests as sweeping snow, cutting wood, and doing housework, and was 101 years old when Langer took her picture. She was born in 1912. She cherished her memories of her late husband, who passed over 60 years before Langer ever met her. She had never remarried. Prokop Vejda. Born in 1909, Prokop Vejda was 22 years old and had recently entered in the army when the left-hand photo was shot. Vejda was a metallurgical engineer who was 101 years old when Langer met him. He informed Langer that he enjoyed cutting circular saws as a pastime while residing on the family farm. He claimed that warm, fresh goat milk was the memory that stayed with him the longest. Marie Feyfrova. Since Langer's picture collection only includes a photograph of Marie Feyfrova at 101 years old, it is instantly clear that it differs greatly from the others. To clarify, Langer explains that she relocated to the care facility in Prague, where he met her after burning all of her letters, diaries, and photos when she turned 101. She loved to read both English and French literature. She recalled sheltering in the same coal bunker in 1939 and 1945 from the Russians and the Nazis. She expressed her desire to go to sleep and never wake up again. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, give us a thumbs up, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss any of our videos. If you enjoyed the tale, the next video that plays on your screen will probably move you too.